on the Hippy Dippy spin-off show, Piers Morgan Uncensored, Piers Morgan brought on a bunch of guests to talk about the Epstein files. And one of those guests he brought on is just brilliant, okay? And that guest is Jack Posobiec. Now, Jack Posobiec is somebody that I would think on a regular day, I would regularly address him as un-American. And the reason I call him un-American is because he is open about his undemocratic principles. He's open about his hatred of liberal institutions, not liberal in the idea that, oh, they're left-wing and woke, but liberal in the idea that, you know, we believe in institutional structures that pass from administration to administration, that are supposed to be largely, you know, independent, that are supposed to be able to show that independence so they're better at doing their job, that is not filled with political appointees, respecting the democratic outcome of elections, choosing a pluralistic society of religious freedom over what he says is for the cross to take over democracy, which he openly said at CSPAC. He said he wants Christianity to overtake democracy. Not even for these two things to work in tandem, but for it to replace it. So this is somebody that I regularly would never give the benefit of the doubt. So me giving him the benefit of the doubt tonight, I think is actually quite a radical diversion. And the reason I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt is if I was Jack Posobiec and someone asked me to talk about the Epstein files, I would never accept. I would never show my face to talk about this topic again. Oh my God, are you kidding me? You go out in public and you take those binders given to you by Pam Bondi, where she said the Epstein files were on her desk being reviewed right now. They said they're being reviewed and we're going to release them. And then they take you and they put you on stage and they have you take these pictures with these binders that had no new revelations in them, no new developments, and seemed to be nothing more but than a PR show. We got no new revelations about Epstein. The client list has never been revealed. Now the administration, which had previously claimed that there was a client list, both when they were not elected and when they were elected, because they were saying it as early as recent ago as February, Pam Bondi was saying that she was reviewing the Epstein files on her desk. That she was reviewing the Epstein list. It was on her desk. And instead of us getting any revelations, any new files, any new names, we get this PR show. Trump says, well, we don't need to dig into Epstein anymore. You know, we don't want to ruin people with false attacks or anything. And with Trump's most recent response to being asked about Epstein being rage, just being nothing but rage. I don't know if you guys saw this. It is the most guilty Trump has ever looked. And that's really saying something. To say that it's the most guilty that Trump has ever looked is is not a easy accomplishment. It is not a feat accomplished with little effort. Let me show you this media. Let me find it quick. Here it is. Here is the file.
Sure.
Here's the video. Here is Donald Trump being asked about Jeffrey Epstein. And I want to remind you all, the reason we're talking about Epstein is because during the Texas floods, during all of the stuff that's in the news right now, they chose to come out and say, there is no Epstein files. We're not really revealing anything else. Epstein ended his own life. They chose to come out and say that right now. And so the media, hearing about it right now, since they very cynically timed it during this very busy media cycle, Trump's asked about it, and now he can say, what? You're asking us about Epstein now when there's floods? You released the information during the floods. If anything, you're the one being disrespectful to the flood victims by clogging up the news cycle with something that could have waited a month.
Sure.
Your memo and release yesterday on Jeffrey Epstein, it left some lingering mysteries. One of the biggest ones is whether he ever worked for a American or foreign intelligence agency. The former labor secretary, who was Miami U.S. Attorney Alex Costa, he allegedly said that he did work for an intelligence agency. So could you resolve whether or not he did? And also, could you say why there was a minute missing from the jailhouse tape on the native staff?
Yeah, sure. If
Hey, Pam, could I just interrupt for 1 second? Are you still talking about Jeffrey Epstein? This guy's been talked about for years. You're asking, we have Texas, we have this, we have all of the things. And are people still talking about this guy, this creep? That is unbelievable. Do you want to waste the time, and do you feel like answering?
I don't mind answering.
I mean, I can't believe you're asking a question on Epstein at a time like this, where we're having some of the greatest success and also tragedy with what happened in Texas.
Jack, let me start with you. What's happened here? I mean, we were all led down a train of thought that there was going to be all sorts of stuff coming out about this Epstein case, the files, the names, the lists.
Okay, so what I was trying to get at before, I guess I muted myself, or I was muted, is if I was Jack Posobiec, I would be embarrassed to go on a stream to talk about this, to talk about it in the news, but certainly to debate it, to be in an environment where people could advertise, like in an adversarial manner, confront me over it and say, why did you help them cover up what happened? He is way braver than me. Genuinely way braver than me when it comes to that. If I was him, I would have stayed home. I probably wouldn't have participated in the PR stunt to begin with, but it's not hard to frame him as participating in the Donald Trump cover-up of the Epstein files. And so he's facing a tough challenge here. Good luck.
To all of you. Jack, let me start with you. What's happened here? I mean, we were all led down a train of thought that there was going to be all sorts of stuff coming out about this Epstein case, the files, the names, the lists, accountability, and then boom, it's all disappeared.
Yeah, Piers, I mean, this is, as we would say in the military, unsat, completely unsat from Attorney General Pam Bondi. And this line about there being files that are currently under seal in some criminal case, well, then great. Let's go and get those unsealed as soon as possible. Look, I was brought to the White House under the pretense of a series of policy briefings that were going to be held, not just from the AG, but from, we had the vice president came in, the president came in, Bobby Kennedy came in. So we had a rotating series of people from the administration, Marco Rubio, Secretary of State, and then nobody told us prior to this that the Epstein files would be anywhere even on the agenda for that day. And it was really sprung as a surprise to all of us. We get handed these binders, and then before we even have a chance to look into them, we're hauled out actually in front of the cameras that were all there because Prime Minister Keir Starmer was visiting.
Mind you, they posed with the binders. He could have just walked away. They chose to pose with the binders, post on social media that they had the binders, like brag about, like they loved the fact that they were given this, that they get to be the ones claiming to be the leader on, you know, exposing the Epstein files. They bought it.
White House that day, and oh, it just so happened.
Like, why not be like, oh, thank you for this binder. I will now put it in a bag and leave the building. I will get back to you.
That they were all in front of the West Wing. And by the time that we have the ability to actually go through them, well, lo and behold, we find out that it's all information that was completely already in the public domain. In fact, some of the information that was in the public domain was more extensive than what was given to us on that day. So the whole thing, obviously, I think, as you say, is a cock-up. I hope I'm using that phrase correctly. I'm not entirely familiar with it, but that certainly feels like what happened here, and we don't have the accountability that was spoken of. We don't have the releases that were spoken of, and it's indefensible. It's indefensible that the answers aren't there when so much was promised.
Brian Shapiro, I mean, look, it's perfectly possible. Indeed, it looks increasingly likely that Epstein did indeed just commit suicide. What is not perfectly possible?
And I saw Jack swallowed once he said that out loud. He's put in such a bad position. He doesn't want to contradict Trump because that would anger a big part of his base. But if he says that Epstein ended his own life, he looks like a Fed. No matter what way he goes, it's either he's anti-Trump coded, so it's DTS, Trump TDS, Trump derangement syndrome coded, or he's lib-Fed coded by saying Epstein ended his own life. There's like no way for him to escape here. Why would you agree to be in a venue where you're going to be cornered off like this and shot like a fish in a barrel?
My cynical eye about this is that he was the only person other than Ghislaine Maxwell, who's been imprisoned, who was ever up to criminal activity on his island and other places. It just stretches credulity. But nobody, it seems, is ever going to be held accountable other than him, who evaded accountability by dying, killing himself, or Ghislaine Maxwell, a woman. So none of these other men who were linked to this are ever going to be even remotely held accountable. It's just disappeared.
Yeah. Well, what I would say, Piers, first of all, when Haba did your show, where did she get that information from? Where did that come from back in February? I would also say to Pam Bondi, she lied on Fox News, or maybe she was telling the truth. She said she had a list that was on her desk, Piers. Where did that list go? Was she lying? Was that made up? And I'd also say, thirdly, and I know this is something that...
It was very funny watching Fox News' Peter Doocy to have to be the one to confront Caroline Leavitt over the fact that... I remember they... like Peter Doocy asked, like, so, you know, what happened to the Epstein list? And he was like, well, you know, you should remember what Pam Bondi said in her statement. Oh, I remember. And then read it word for word. And they had nothing. They had no response. Oh, what we really meant is not that they had the list on her desk, just that she had all of the files related to the case, except for all the stuff that we continue to not release.
Jack probably doesn't want to bring up. But the fact of the matter is that Jeffrey Epstein's on audio saying at one point Donald Trump was his best friend. We also know that Donald Trump was on the Epstein flight log 7 times. We learned that in the Maxwell case. So I don't think it's a stretch to say maybe Donald Trump might be somewhere in these files. Maybe. We don't know that for sure. But I know if it was the other way around and if it was Joe Biden that was best friends with Jeffrey Epstein at one point, that's all Jack and MAGA Republicans would be talking about. I think Donald Trump is on this list, and I think Donald Trump is in these files, and I think the Trump administration is hiding something.
I mean, what is extraordinary, I think, Brian, is that it all seems to have gone incredibly quiet from the moment Elon Musk started dragging Trump's name into the Epstein.
That's another thing with Elon saying Trump's on the list, then deleting it as if he had let a cat out of the bag you can't shove back in there, opened the can you can't reseal, and then going back and saying it again, continuing to say, release the files. Hey, Trump, why won't you release the files? This is the richest man on the planet who was a Trump insider for a bit, coming out and saying he's in the files. And then after that, we get a reversal where Pam Bondi goes from the list is on my desk to there is no list. Maybe there is a list, maybe there isn't. I don't know. But whether or not they were just playing a show for the cameras or not, maybe this is an instance of their lies catching up with them. Maybe this is an instance, as he suggests, of Trump being in there due to his past associations with Epstein, past traveling with Epstein, past comments about Epstein being his friend, past comments about Epstein liking his girls on the younger side. I don't know. But it all creates an incredible amount of smoke that makes it very hard to say that it doesn't feel like there's oh, I'm sure there's no fire. The fact that there could be a fire, and that fire could be the president of the United States being serviced by Jeffrey Epstein, should be a concern in and of itself, and a good enough reason to release the files in its entirety, with the only restrictions being made to protect the names of the victims.
Case when they fell out in posts on his X platform, and he's carried on overnight doing more posts, not directly linking the president, but saying what the hell has happened here effectively. But he was the one that ignited the Trump link again. You know, you do wonder, is that involved here? Has Trump basically thought this is just going to be a lot of bad publicity here? Let's just get rid of it.
Yeah, well, I'll say this, Pierce. You know, anytime somebody says something about Donald Trump that might not be true, Trump always threatens a lawsuit. Why is it that Donald Trump didn't threaten to sue Elon Musk when Elon Musk said that Trump was all over the Epstein files?
I mean, they sued ABC, and their parent company Paramount made them bend the knee to give them Trump millions of dollars for the edit of a Harris interview because he said it made her look better in a promotion for the full interview. And that somehow needed fiscal recompense because that is going to help her get elected after she lost the election. It's like a pure, like, kiss the ring move towards the media establishment. And he does that towards organizations that don't lie about him, who publish journalistically important footage of interviews of presidential candidates. You don't think he'd pull the trigger on somebody who said that he's with the chief kitty diddler in the world, like the most notorious trafficker? I hadn't heard that argument before. I don't know who Mr. Flatcap is over here, but that's a decent point.
That to be very, very interesting. You know, Bill Maher could call Donald Trump the son of an orangutan, and then Trump will file a lawsuit about that. Why wouldn't he file a lawsuit against Elon? Maybe Elon is telling the truth, and maybe Elon knows some things that the general public does not know. I tend to believe Elon on this one.
It's certainly intriguing. John Kiriakou, what do you think has happened here? I mean, Epstein, you know, one of the most infamous cases of the last 20 years. Of the century, arguably. So many famous, powerful, rich people whose names were dragged into this and were clearly in attendance at his parties and on his island and so on. And then here, now suddenly, having led the media around the world into a lava of excitement about it's all going to come out and you're going to get all the details, now, bang, it's just been shelved. What do you make of it?
Right.
You've probably seen the viral videos of a North Korean phone. Slash Piers.
Well, based on my own experience at the CIA, there's very little daylight between the CIA and the FBI. You know, the CIA said there was no torture program. That was a lie. No international renditions. That was a lie. No secret prisons. That was a lie. MK Ultra documents were all released. That was a lie. The CIA didn't try to recruit Oswald. That's a lie. These organizations that make up the so-called deep state, and we can have that debate whether or not you want to call it the deep state, but they all lie. They're trained to lie. And so I don't even think that we should blame the likes of Kash Patel and Dan Bongino. I think people probably at a lower level destroyed whatever they could destroy and let the lie go up to the...
Yeah, but by the way, when we talk about they lied, it wasn't like the lie about MK Ultra was like, oh my God, there's this mass like surveillance and manipulation. It was an operation to help with like interrogation techniques. Like, I think like the video game consoles that were like the stories of an MK Ultra video game console and a video game location and or like all of that's probably BS. But I mean, it was a real thing, MK Ultra.
Very top, and hope that this whole thing just goes away. If there are no documents to implicate famous people, then it'll eventually go quiet. And my guess is in 30 years or 50 years or whenever it's going to be, at least some of the truth will probably be released.
Adam Mockler, I mean, it does stick in the gullet, doesn't it, that the only person to go to prison in the whole Epstein scandal is a woman.
Yeah, well, John said he thinks the people at the bottom might have destroyed the evidence, but the reality is the people at the top, like Pam Bondi, were the ones saying they had the list sitting on their desk. So it seems like that deep state you referred to, the party that promised to defeat the deep state, very quickly became the deep state. Here's the timeline in my eyes. Pam Bondi says, I have the list on my desk right here. They're rather silent for a few months. Then Elon Musk says Trump is in the Epstein list. Then within weeks, apparently the list is gone. I mean, I'm looking at this photo of Jack Posobiec holding up the Epstein files. It says the Epstein files, phase 1. But where's phase 2? There's no phase 2. So I'm happy that influencers like Jack are admitting they were conned by the admin to cover up the sexual abuse of children.
Yeah, Jack, I mean, do you feel angry? Do you feel you were used in some way?
Damn. I mean, if they got you to stand with those pictures for that photo op, they did use you. And that's the way he described it in the intro. He wanted to preempt the comment.
Sexual abuse of children.
Yeah, Jack, I mean, do you feel angry? Do you feel you were used in some way?
Well, it's something. It's very upsetting. It's extremely upsetting to be brought in something like this, to think that you're going into a situation where, hey, we're finally going to get some of these answers that we all want. Because at the end of the day, this is all about getting justice for the victims here, the actual victims. And I keep going back and looking over the different pieces of this story. You know, what was Prince Andrew disgraced for? Why did he go up on this huge interview and then lose all of his titles and all that, and he's losing his security now, I hear. And, you know, why did we go all the way around, you know, name after name after name? But at the end of the day, it's actually about the victims. And do you really mean to tell me that all of those victims were questioned and all of the things that they said were investigated and were run down? Because it just doesn't really feel like that's been done here.
No, it doesn't. Talking of Elon Musk.
He had no response. I mean, is he really accepting? Is he really accepting that he was used in that way? I mean, the point at Adam Mockler's, like the sharp edge of Adam Mockler's point was you were conned, used as a useful idiot to help the administration cover up the Epstein situation. That by you taking those files that had a bunch of already publicly listed information and posing, I remember Jack's pose. He stood there holding it, super proud, just with the rest of them, all these different content creators standing with these files, whether it was done the way Jack Posobiec describes it and it was hoisted on them as they're about to leave, they still posed. And if it wasn't done that way, if it was done another way, either way, they posted on social media about it excitedly. They posed for the cameras, and they made it seem like there was this big drop happening, and there was no drop happening. And so for that time being, at the very least, he helped buy them time. And while now it's accepted that they never released anything, at the time, that's what they wanted to get away with releasing. And remember, that set of documents said phase 1. Where's phase 2? Where's the second phase of those documents? There was never any second phase. So it seems like Jack is just accepting on face value that, yeah, he was used as a useful idiot. And so instead of saying, no, I wasn't, and defending himself, he accepts that preposition and just goes forward to say we need to care about the victims, which, true, yes. It's just very interesting that Jack Posobiec cannot defend against being a useful idiot. And it also makes you question, like, if he was this easy to con, you just put some papers in his hand and write Epstein on it with crayon, and he goes, oh, and he poses for you. What other things can he get Epstein's cover-up man to do?
Brian, just to bring you in again here. So Musk is now simultaneous to all this. Obviously, this flame out with Trump is gathering momentum. He's now announced the launch of a new political party, the America Party. You know, third parties have had, you know, a few instances in modern American history. They never tend to get very far, but we've never had the richest and most successful businessman in history launching one who's got $300 billion and happens to own one of the biggest social media platforms on which he has 200 million followers. He's not just your average third-party guy, is he? How interesting is this, and how damaging could this be, particularly to Donald Trump and the Republicans?
I think it certainly hurts Republicans and Donald Trump more than Democrats. But I would also say what you mentioned, this is the richest man in the world. With money comes a lot of power. This has been tried in the past many a times, but it hasn't been tried with someone with the money and the power that Elon Musk has. But I think the question we need to ask ourselves now is this just another phase that Elon Musk is going through? And then when this blows over, if it ever does, between him and Donald Trump, will he just move on? Or is he really, truly serious about this? You know, there are a lot of people that didn't think that he was ever going to buy Twitter, now X, and he ended up doing that. So, you know, will he do this? Will he continue this? And in 6 months from now, will we still be talking about this? I would venture to guess Probably so. It sounds to me like Elon Musk is serious, and this will be very damning, in my opinion, to plenty of MAGA Republicans out there.
Yeah, and Adam, what this all seems.
I have no clue if Elon's serious about the third party. It could be that he's just trying to build leverage and showing what he can do. Maybe he will really go through with it and try this third party run to try to get a few congressional seats, get some leverage. But I mean, I do not rank high his chances of success. I don't. I remember hearing Van Jones say, well, people are really upset about the two-party duopoly right now. Maybe there's a chance. People are upset about the status quo. People are upset about the lack of fighting for the little man. And I think that having a third party unilaterally brought to life by the richest man on the planet, who is drained in extravagant amounts of wealth and, is a pretty bad communicator, to be blunt, I think it has less of a chance of succeeding under those circumstances.
To center around is he was brought in obviously to run Doge, to reduce government overspending and waste, and at the same time Trump was launching the big beautiful bill, which many people think is going to add trillions to the debt. The two were clearly incompatible bedfellows, and that's led to Musk going. Now, Trump talks about EV car mandates being one of the catalysts for the falling out or whatever, but it's probably as simple as one person wanted to slash government spending and the other one wanted to bring in policies which are highly likely, certainly in the short to midterm, to increase the national spending and debt.
Wait, what's the short to midterm? Because the estimations are 10 years, $3.4 trillion. Is 10 years not long term? Are we talking long term like 50 years? What counts as long term?
So there's the clash. How serious do you think this is going to get?
I don't think you should understate the extent to which Jared Isaacman, the NASA candidate, being slashed, also pissed Elon Musk off.
Right.
He was really mad about Jared Isaacman. What I find funny about all of this is that Elon Musk is now leveraging the same mechanisms that he used to get Trump elected just a few months ago to now start a third party designed to undermine Trump's coalition. So the attention economy that he has with Twitter, he's going to leverage that. The vast wealth, he's going to leverage that. As to the question of how serious this is, I actually disagree with Brian. I think in 6 months, Elon will be on to the next thing. He doesn't seem to have the steady hand needed in politics to carry through a long-term agenda, and we saw that with Doge.
Well, there might be another reason, which is that shares in Tesla are tanking, down 7%, I think, at the start of regular trading today. Now, that might just be a market reaction. It may recover, but certainly recent numbers for Tesla have not been good. John, what do you think of this? I mean, it's not an intelligence issue, but as an American, what do you?
You must trust the 100-year plan, Dylan. Look, there's this plan. There's no chance for this to increase revenue, in my opinion. It is not debt neutral, which is the best you could really even hope for. It's gonna continue to increase the debt. It's just debt neutrality is kind of manifested out of thin air by the Treasury Secretary, Scott Bessent. But I mean, there hasn't been a convincing argument as to how this is debt neutral. Especially once they've reeled back some of the cuts to try to win over these straggler senators and congresspeople.
Now, the potential for a third party by somebody who's actually got the means to make it significant.
Well, it wasn't too long ago that Ross Perot was able to buy 30-minute blocks on literally every network to promote his own candidacy and got something like 19%, which was very, very respectable for an independent presidential candidate. But it didn't lead to anything. With Elon Musk, there's nothing behind it but money. There's nobody running in the state legislatures, nobody running for Congress and whatever it's called, the American Party or some silly name like that. There's nobody running for the local school board or the water commission that's going to.
Yeah, no, they're not gonna. This is the problem. If you want a third party to succeed in this country, the best way to do it is to start local and build out and then build up, right? But there's no glory in winning local county commissioner, and there's no glory in that. There's no glory. And hey, we just got someone elected to the school board, especially if a lot of these races are going to be nonpartisan, which means you can't take away your new party's flag and wave it around that much. But that's how you build trust with voters. That's how you prove to them that they're not throwing away their vote. That's how you prove to them that you have a certain amount of competence and governance. And that's exactly what Elon is not going to do.
To be the roots of this new party.
It's what the Green Party should be doing, by the way, instead of just wheeling out Jill Stein from whatever, shed she's hidden away in the 3 years between election cycles.
I think that this is just kind of a vanity project. And I have to agree that I think in 6 months, some shiny object is going to distract Elon Musk, and we're not going to even hear about this party anymore.
Jack, what do you feel about this? A lot of people on the MAGA side of Trump's support were pretty dubious about Elon Musk to start with. A lot of them thought, well, this guy was a Democrat, and now he's come over, and maybe he's just trying to buy his way into power, get Trump elected, and use that to benefit all his companies, which obviously do benefit and have benefited from that association. But now it's gone the other way, and he's clearly trying to punish Trump and punish Republicans in launching this third party. What do you feel about the politics going on here?
Well, I think the politics that everyone said, and I broadly agree with everyone's take so far on here. I think this is a way to put leverage on President Trump, to put leverage on the party as we go towards the elections and then determining the swing of things. Because, look, people are saying, what about the presidential race and Ross Perot? And certainly with the tight margins that we saw in the 7 swing states, you could play a role there. But look at the midterms right now. With congressional majority in the House being as small as it is, you would only need to flip a couple of seats, run a couple of spoiler candidates in a few of those tight races, and you could easily flip the House one way or the other. So what it does is right now, today, is buy him much more leverage than he even had before, and he can do that without even running a single candidate anywhere. And I think he'd be much more...
Well, that's true, but that also assumes that Trump is an easy person to negotiate with, and he'll actually come down off of his high horse and talk to Elon as if he is a man of immense wealth who could actually tilt an election one way or the other, who is deserving of concessions in order to get his support. And if he's willing to make the concessions necessary to get his support on future spending packages. And whether Elon would trust him at this point. Honestly, I think Elon would probably just take what he could get, even if it just came with an open commitment. But, it's a question.
Successful with a project like this at the state level, at the House level, and at the Senate level than at the presidential level. And he can do so quite immediately.
I mean, obviously, you've got a massive clash of two gigantic egos here, and people used to getting their own way. Do you think... I can't see them really making up from this. I mean, Trump called him a train wreck last night. Elon's been hammering away, dismissing his big, beautiful bill as a total disaster that will bankrupt the country. It's very hard to see how they make up here, isn't it, Jack?
Well, I would say never count anything out. I mean, you've seen President Trump be able to make friends or allies of rivals in the past, and he certainly has the ability to do so, sometimes even against the wishes of MAGA. But, that's certainly his prerogative. For Elon, absolutely, he's got a track record of moving from one thing to the other. But if he sees perhaps a path forward from a business perspective, look, keep in mind, he's still got to deal with the government in terms of a lot of the contracts for his companies, in terms of the Department of Defense, in terms of NASA, in terms of Tesla. So he's going to need a lot of this going forward, and I think whether they like it or not, they're stuck together.
He was friends with Epstein. He'll be friends with Elon.
What was that?
He was friends with Epstein. I'm sure he can be friends with Elon Musk.
He actually helped Epstein be prosecuted. He was the only person who was involved, kicked him out of the Epstein. You know all this, like it's just a very...
Have you heard of Alexander Acosta, the Florida district attorney who was...
Have you heard
of Alexander Acosta? You know who that is?
You're like, oh, I got it. Look at me, like I'm the guy from Third Eye.
Do you know who Alexander Acosta is?
No.
What is he saying? I think he's trying to make a quip. He said something. He looks like he's from 1999 is what what are these insults? Just say he's stupid. Don't try to be quirky about it. You're not quirky, okay? You're
duped to cover up sexual abuse of
Donald
children.
Trump was
You were
kicked
duped.
him out of Mar-a-Lago. Donald Trump was the only one who went to investigators and said, "I will
Piers,
work
do you know
with
who
you
Alexander
against
Acosta is?
Epstein." This has been litigated a million times.
Well,
It's been litigated a million
first of all,
times.
Brian, I'll come to you, but Adam, just explain what you're talking about.
Yeah, really quickly, Alexander Acosta was a Florida district attorney. You could look this up.
That was smart by Adam to appeal to Piers. Piers, do you know who Acosta is? That was smart. He knows how the show works.
He knew both Trump and Epstein. He was appointed as a Secretary of Labor under Trump and had to resign in 2017 because people found out that he mishandled the Epstein case in 2007 and let Epstein get an illegal plea deal. Epstein was then able to go re-offend, and Trump appointed him in 2017. So I don't want to hear the dude that was brought to the White House to cover up sexual abuse saying that there was, I don't, like, what are you trying to say here? Yeah.
You gonna wipe your face? Can you just wipe that little thing off your face there a little bit? You got a little,
right, hold on a second.
mud on your face.
You
there.
have no points.
Hold on a second.
No
Can
points, huh?
Can I add something?
Why would he go in public like this? Hey, I was. So you say that I helped cover up the abuse of children? Well, your chin dimple looks silly. We equally look bad here.
First of all, I hear the MAGA bullshit detector going off every single time Jack opens his mouth. First of all, people like Jack were the people who called Joe Biden a pedophile for sniffing hair, but yet we have Jeffrey Epstein on tape calling Donald Trump his best friend. They were hanging out together constantly. I've spoken to Jeffrey Epstein's brother
do you want me
many
to go
times.
Through the
They
list
were
of
very
all the
close.
Democrats
I'm not done yet,
with?
Jack.
Piers, like, we can go through all this again, but Piers, I know you've done.
Wait. Who cares if Jeffrey Epstein was friends with some random Democrat? Donald Trump's the president of the United States. He is the one with the authority to tell Pam Bondi, release the files. He has chosen not only not to do that, but to lash out at the press when they ask for more information about the files, even though it's within 24 hours of them announcing that Epstein ended his own life, that we don't need to release anything, that what Pam Bondi said wasn't true. But to even ask a follow-up question is offensive to the victims of the Texas flood. Okay, if there's Democrats in there, good, expose them. Expose the Republicans, expose the Democrats, expose anybody who has abused a child or knew about the abuse of children and did nothing.
Done yet. I didn't interrupt you.
You've
Jack,
been a real reporter
Jack,
on this. These guys just want to play
Jack,
politics. I'm trying to be
Jack.
serious here.
I'm sorry. Dude. Jack Posobiec doesn't want to play politics. Jack Posobiec only wants to play serious issues. He only cares about seriousness. These political partisans. My God.
Jack,
dude, you were at the White House with Epstein files in your hand.
Yeah, just talked about it.
Right, exactly, Jack. Jack, just you want to defend Donald Trump and wear the Donald Trump knee pads 24/7, but when it comes to a Democrat, they're all pedophiles. But if Donald Trump is actually hanging out with Jeffrey Epstein and
do you have
Epstein
like
calls
any
him
evidence
his
of
best
this? Like,
friend,
do you have like a source on that, bro?
No, because
like,
the Pam Bondi won't release the sources.
Actually, yeah, I do. The Maxwell trial, where it was learned that he was on the Epstein flight. Why don't you listen? It was in the trial, in the Maxwell trial, that he was on the flight log 7 times. We have Jeffrey Epstein on audio calling him his best friend. So here's my question to Jeff.
It's such a terrible. In fact, did you know that if the guy I supported is a diddler, that so is the Democratic president from 20 years ago? I'm very smart. I'm very intelligent. Why would this matter to Adam Mockler? Why would Adam? You think Adam is going to go out there and crusade for Bill Clinton? You think, oh, right now, quick, the Bill Clinton defense squad, assemble, is going to rise out of the ashes? Bill Clinton isn't president of the United States.
Jack,
and how many
if
times
Jeffrey
did Bill Clinton
Epstein was on audio.
And how many times did Jeffrey Epstein say that he was one of the founding members of the Clinton Institute?
I don't defend Jack. If Jeffrey Epstein was on audio saying that Joe Biden was his best friend, that wouldn't concern you at all?
Man, these are
all
like
you do is
2016
deflect and you talk
points.
about other
Don't
people.
you guys have anything new?
What does he mean 2016 talking points? The audio of Donald Trump being called Jeffrey Epstein's best friend was released like a week before the 2024 election. This is talking points that are 8 years after the fact.
I mean, my line about the Epstein circle of famous friends is, to me, that there's a clear line before his initial conviction, which was a complete stitch up in his favor, no question of that. There were
Jack, why won't they release the files then?
Well, hang on, Brian. Hang on, Brian. The point I'm going to make is, I do think if you continue to be a friend of Epstein, knowing he was a convicted pedophile after whatever it was, 2009 or so, as Prince Andrew did, for example, then I'm afraid that is seriously problematic. For those who were in his circle, of a wide circle of well-known people, from Bill Gates to Trump to all these, Bill Clinton, I mean, he hooked in everybody, but a lot of them had nothing to do with him, including Trump, I believe, after that conviction. But if you carried on seeing him as Andrew did, living at his house for a few days, years later, knowing he was a convicted pedophile, that is different. I mean, do we agree?
Yeah. I think that's all been litigated.
I certainly agree with what you're saying, Piers, and your point there. But the point that I'm trying to make is there has to be a reason why they're not releasing the files. Why are they being so mum? Why is the list just magically disappeared? And I think one can come to a very logical conclusion, unless you're Jack and you defend Donald Trump 24/7, that maybe there might be something to do with the fact that Trump might be in these files and there might be some wrongdoing there, considering the fact that they were at one point best.
Honestly, it's much easier for me to believe that Donald Trump isn't even like a client of Jeffrey Epstein, but that Donald Trump, like probably a lot of other people, knew what Jeffrey Epstein was about. And because he is somebody who's hanged with a level of New York degenerate that could make a Hollywood executive blush, he just moved on with his life. Like, hey, when they talk about, hey, Donald Trump was in a position to help bring Jeffrey Epstein down, why was he in a position to do that? What did he know? And why did that only become available later down the line when the investigation was well underway and people started getting interviewed? Like, was Donald Trump somebody who found out about Jeffrey Epstein and rushed to the police? Or was he somebody who sat back and waited? Like probably a lot of other people who knew. And I think maybe the crime could be not that Donald Trump participated in the Lolita Express's low lows, but instead simply watched as the Lolita Express fly by, as well as flew on a bunch of planes with Jeffrey Epstein.
Friends.
Well, they certainly...
I mean, it's impossible to say because we don't see the files, but, you know, it is suspicious.
Certainly, look, they've certainly gone as an administration from full bore, we're going to reveal everything and it's really shocking and there's going to have to be accountability. I mean, I had them on my show. They've gone from that position to suddenly, no, there's nothing mysterious about his death. He definitely killed himself. Here's the CCTV footage. And there is no client list. And none of that is right. And actually, you know what? It's all over. And it is odd. I mean, John,
Piers.
Again, John, you know, from with your intelligence hat on, does this? I mean, do you smell a rat here? Does this look like there's been a little bit of a closing of ranks to shut this up?
Yes, I do smell a rat. And I'd like to know why no one in the media is talking about the investigation or the fact that there should have been an investigation into whether or not Jeffrey Epstein was working for a foreign intelligence service. You know, let's say that.
So that's really interesting. So look, you've studied into this. What is the evidence that he might have been?
He is a textbook example of an access agent. You're, like I said the last time I was on the show, Piers, you're not going to recruit Bill Clinton. You're not going to recruit Bill Gates. You're not going to recruit Alan Dershowitz. But you can recruit someone who gets close to those people. You can give them something that you can hold over their heads if you have to in the end. And then you report back to your handlers everything that they say. And in exchange, you get untold wealth and a house in the Caribbean and the biggest townhouse in Manhattan and a private plane. And that's a pretty good life, especially if you're a pedophile and you enjoy doing things like that. And nobody's talking about whether or not he was an access agent.
Yeah, I mean, that's really interesting. I mean, does the intelligence community believe that there is merit to that suggestion?
Yes, it does. It does. But the problem here is the accusation is that he was an access agent for the Israelis. And that's something that the intelligence community really doesn't like to touch.
Why?
Because we have this special relationship with Israel, not like a Five Eyes relationship like we have with the UK, Canada, Australia, New Zealand. But this special relationship where we share so much, we provide so much, we work with the Israelis on issues all around the region, at least around the world, and on a handful of issues. Why upset the balance over one dead pedophile? Isn't it easier just to cover it up?
Brian, what do you think of that?
I believe that Jeffrey Epstein surrounded himself with a lot of powerful people.
This is all speculation, by the way. I mean, could it be true? I mean, maybe, who knows? Epstein would be somebody who'd be extremely useful for any intelligence outlet to get under their thumb with the access that he did have and with the type of activities that they did.
Morally corrupt, bankrupt man.
But I mean, whether or not he actually did that, I mean, that's completely up for question. I mean, no clue. Hell, maybe it's not even the Israelis. Could be. I mean, could it be the United States? The Vince Wilson Show. Hope you're staying safe, brother. Thanks, Vince. Not really, but I appreciate the well wishes anyway.
Very, very possible that he could have been working for a government agency. Very, very possible as well. I would tend to agree with the fact that this needs to be investigated more. The media needs to talk about it more. And I don't think this is just a situation where Jeffrey Epstein was getting people to come on his island and sadly do horrible things to young girls. I think there's a lot more to this story. I think there's a lot of people hiding a lot of information. So I certainly agree with what he just said.
I mean, 385 has donated $5. People forgot the whole hours of taped audio interviews of Epstein by Michael Wolff that Jeffrey spilled the tea on him in Trump last year, released by Wolff.
Yep. It was released right before the election and got no airtime. That's why I was surprised when Jack was like, these arguments are from 2016. They're from an interview that's less than a year old. He just is so used to just saying stale. Oh, Russiagate again, stale. Oh, Trump derangement syndrome. He just locked into one of his like preset dialogue trees. Thank you for the $5.
Jack, one of the conspiracy theories I've seen online a lot in the last few days is it's not a coincidence that Netanyahu is coming to the White House, that he's been there, I think, 3 times in the last few months. He has a much better relationship with Trump now than they did when he pissed Trump off by going to see Biden and so on. And that suddenly the Epstein files disappear. If you were working as a conspiracy theorist and you bought into the idea that he was some kind of agent for the Israelis, which is not completely implausible, given all the connections he had, has there been some tacit agreement with Netanyahu to get rid of this problem? I mean, stranger things have happened.
I think the perception is horrible. I think the perception is absolutely horrible, and it puts a huge, huge onus on the entire administration, and certainly coming from Pam Bondi for her mismanagement of this. I want to go back to something that John was saying as well, but Ghislaine Maxwell's father, Robert, this is so Robert Maxwell is someone who's highly fingered in a lot of these conspiracies or a lot of these allegations. His entire career, there were allegation after allegation that he was involved somehow with Israeli intelligence, going all the way back even to the 1940s, and serious questions about some of the work that he did all the way through this. And then, of course, as it goes, she becomes the recruiter for Epstein. And so these questions have really gone deeper and deeper and deeper. And of course, there's no actual evidence or, just hearing of the evidence or release of the evidence, release of the file, a task force, even a press conference, and instead we get, we're just going to move on. And here's a press release on a Sunday night when it's a holiday here in the U.S.
Yeah, it is. I mean, Adam, it is just a bit weird, the whole thing. I can't quite get my head around this because they were so emphatic that this was going to be huge. And now it's nothing. It's not like even mini huge. It's nothing. There's nothing to see here.
Yeah, and to build on that, I can't tell if it would be worse if this was a cock-up or a conspiracy, because if it's a cock-up, that means they were straight up lying to the American people the entire time about what they actually had, right? Or if it's a conspiracy, that means they have it and they hid it the entire time. I mean, either way, it looks really bad on the administration, and especially for an admin that has created this grounds that is like primed for conspiratorial thinking. A lot of the MAGA influencers were super ready, super excited for the Epstein files to release. So when you create the grounds that are perfect for conspiratorial thinking, and then you pull back, there are going to be a lot of conspiracies about the admin now.
You know, Jack, it's a confusing time to be in MAGA, isn't it? It must be, right? Because there's so much going on, which must be quite bemusing. You know, you're led up the hill of we're going to get all the dirt on Epstein. That disappears. You know, you've got the attack on Iran, which seems to fly in the face of everything Trump has said about foreign wars, foreign engagement, and so on. You've got a kind of war at the center of the party. You've got Elon Musk, who you were skeptical of, MAGA, and then he's the hero suddenly, and now he's the villain again. This is not an easy time for MAGA to get their heads around the consistent theme here.
Oh, Piers, what are you talking about? I love a fight. I'm always ready for a fight. And MAGA is always made of fighters. So if we got a fight, if we're coming, and by the way, Charlie Kirk is out there today saying that there's a huge push for amnesty.
Then release the Epstein files and have a fight over whatever is released. Hell, might even produce a much better fight, much bigger fight.
Of these, you know, the farm workers, and this was something that was mentioned at the rally over the weekend in Iowa, or I guess just before the weekend in Iowa. And so, you know, look, if there's going to be a fight, then we're more than ready for a fight. And I know that I certainly am, and I'm not going.
But don't you have to know what you're really fighting for?
I'm fighting for the country. I'm fighting for America first.
No, I get that. But, but are you fighting for deportations
yes.
of every illegal immigrant in the United States, if that means
yes.
that farms close all over the United States, for example?
Yes, it is 100% across the board. When we were at the RNC in Milwaukee, we had mass deportations now signs. And by the way, that doesn't necessarily mean that they all need to be arrested. And I know that people have been crunching the numbers and saying, oh, you know, if you do this many arrests a day and that many, I think that self-deportations are something that really need to be worked on. I think the remittance tax that went through in the big, beautiful bill should have been higher. 1% is too low in my estimation. I think that should be 5%, 10%, or even 50%, because in some of these cases, that's exactly what's going on, is that they're here for economic reasons in the United States. And so if you put that...
But doesn't the United States economy need a lot of them? I mean, isn't this the whole point about the farmer debate, is that actually farmers have gone to Trump in big numbers and said, if you deport every illegal, undocumented worker in the country, we're out of business.
Well, look, you know, there can be a way for this to be done in a phased manner where they can get people in, and over time, it's not like it has to be, we're going to snap our fingers overnight and they're going to be gone, but absolutely, over time, 100%.
Brian, what do you think of that? I mean, it seems to me that Trump's had a lot of political wins. Whatever you think of him, the last 3-4 weeks, you could argue, have been the most successful politically that he may have had as a president. But it seems like on a lot of these issues, there's this dilemma which he's going to have to confront, and not least, I think, this issue of undocumented workers.
Okay, now they're on to immigration. Then they move on to all these other issues. I don't think we need to listen to the immigration debate. I think we got everything we could out of this Epstein-wise. It was just funny to watch Posobiec flail around and say, oh, this is like 2016, because it's very hard for him to deal with the fact that he was part of the con. Deep State's favorite idiot. Useful idiot. Zanabo likes to leave in my mistakes because he likes to make me feel like a fool. But then anytime I criticize Zanabo, he edits it out. I criticize him all the time. He just never keeps it in.